Welcome to Author Stories, the podcast where we talk to the best writers in the industry and discuss writing and the creative process. Whether you're a writer, a reader, or both, we hope you'll find something here that makes you love books and the writers that create them. You can find archives of all of the great conversations I've had with authors over the years at hankgarner.com. Take some time and browse around there. I'm sure you'll find a new author to love, find inspiration for your own creative life, and find a new story to get lost in. Let's thank some sponsors who make the show possible. No Good Deed, Book 1 of the Mark Taylor Psychological Thriller series by M.P. McDonald, is free on Amazon.com. Seeing the future comes at a price. What price would you be willing to pay to save thousands of lives? Mark Taylor knows his actions scream guilty, but he was only trying to stop the horrible terrorist attack. Instead of a thank you, the government labels him an enemy combatant and throws him in the brig with no rights, no trial, and no way to prove his innocence. He learns firsthand that the CIA can do anything they want to him, anything at all. Mark's just a regular guy, a photographer, who finds himself in an extraordinary situation when an antique camera he buys at a dusty Afghanistan bazaar produces photographs of future tragedies he's driven to prevent. His frantic warnings about September 11th are ignored, but put him in the government crosshairs when he learns what being labeled an enemy combatant really means. Download this intense and gripping thriller now, free on Amazon. No Good Deed, Book 1 of the Mark Taylor Psychological Thriller series by M.P. McDonald. As the Crow Flies, enter Haddonwood, Book 1 by Risa Walker and Caleb Ansel. From Risa Walker, the award-winning author of the bestselling Kronos Files, and debut author Caleb Ansel, comes a chilling story of altered reality and psychological terror. Chase Ray sits perfectly still, his thumbs traveling across the screen of the broken computer tablet, stuck in the nexus between two worlds. Haddonwood isn't real. It can't be. Another world, another reality, hovers just beyond his reach. He can see it sometimes. He can almost touch it. In that world, things are in balance. The dead stay dead and the creature feature remains safely on the screen. That world isn't a patchwork quilt of every scary book or movie he's seen. In that world, the nightmares generally end when you open your eyes and people don't glitch in and out of existence. Chase is determined to return to that world, although he's a bit worried that the only way out is through the noose that seems to lurk around every corner. He needs allies to get back home. But how do you choose your team when you can't tell who's real? As the Crow Flies, enter Haddonwood, Book 1 by Risa Walker and Caleb Ansel. We're so happy to have our friend Crystal Watanabe as a sponsor of the show. Crystal is one of the best editors in the business, and she has just debuted a new service that I think you'll absolutely love and will help you to up your writing game. Pikko's School of Wordcraft and Editing has just debuted, and the first course is called Properly Punctuating Dialog. It's a mini course and can be completed in just about 20 minutes. It covers the basics of dialogue punctuation. Authors can get access to the new school and the course for free by signing up for Crystal's author newsletter, Notes from Pikko. Go to pikkoshouse.com/newsletters. That's PIKKOSHOUSE.com/newsletters. More in-depth courses will be added in 2020. Make sure you don't miss a thing. pikkoshouse.com/newsletters. Unwilling Souls by Gregory D. Little. Books 1 and 2 are only 99 cents for a limited time. The gods are rightfully imprisoned, and Cess intends to keep them that way. But her terrorist father has other plans. Gregory D. Little's Unwilling Souls is a pulse-pounding chase through an epic fantasy world of adventure, sinister conspiracy, and a magical industrial revolution fueled by harvested human souls. Cess is the daughter of powerful parents who would very much like to kill one another and who therefore pretend she doesn't exist. An apprentice jailer of the gods, Cess spends her days learning to forge the tools needed to maintain the gods' prison. When her terrorist father attacks the prison on her 16th birthday, Sess is forced to flee after the secret of her parentage is revealed. Suddenly on the wrong side of the law, Sess realizes the very father who abandoned her may be the only one who can protect her. But some secrets are darker than parentage. On her way to find her father, Sess will uncover truths about her family and herself that will shatter her understanding of the world and risk the return of the gods themselves. Unwilling Souls and its sequel, Ungrateful God, are on sale now for only 99 cents. The third book of the series is coming early next year, so now is the perfect time to get up to speed. Unwilling Souls by Gregory D. Little. Books 1 and 2, only 99 cents for a limited time. Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I am super excited to have my friend Crystal Watanabe on the show with me to talk all about editing and some really, really fun stuff that she's doing in the writing space right now. Authors or readers, I think you're really going to love the conversation that we're going to have today. Welcome to the show, Crystal.
Hi, thank you.
I am excited to have you, Crystal. We always begin each show with the same question, and that is, what is your first memory of wanting to be a writer or a storyteller?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I did know that I always wanted to have a book, and I did. That's why my first book was a cookbook. So when I had that first copy in my hands, that was super exciting. But I've always loved reading. I don't actually remember when I decided I wanted to. It must have been somewhere around when I was a kid, so I've never really thought about that, though.
I know you have like some serious geek cred, and we've had conversations on Facebook and stuff like that over the years, and talking about video games and science fiction fandom and books and movies and all of this kind of stuff. Do you remember what the first movie or book was that really like pressed your geek buttons?
That is definitely Ender's Game. I can confidently say that book really changed my life. And I mean, in more ways than one. I think I don't remember when already. Sometime in the last 5 to 6 years, I got really involved in the Ender's Game fandom, and I got to do all kinds of exciting things when the movie production was going on, and go to the set and go to the premiere and things like that, which was really awesome.
You even did an Ender's podcast, didn't you?
Yeah, I had an Ender's Game podcast. It was called Endercast. I did that with my friend Kelly.
Nice. What was it about Ender's Game that did it for you? What made it different than any other great sci-fi story?
I don't know. I just remember that I read it in the 6th grade, and just battle school, and the fact that Ender was a kid and he was a genius, and I don't know, just everything about it and what they were laying on him, that just, I don't know, it just really attracted me, and I really loved that. So I wanted to name my third kid, who was a boy. I wanted to name him Andrew, but no go.
That would have been amazing. That would have been amazing. Oh man. You work as an editor and have edited some of my favorite books and have worked with some of my favorite authors. What was it that drew you to editing and working in the book business?
Well, I mean, I've told this story a lot on my website and on Facebook in groups and things like that, but I never really thought about being an editor until Hugh Howey mentioned it to me. I did a beta reading for him a long time ago, just because I mentioned that I do fan sites and stuff, or I used to. So I had made one for Wool, and I emailed him and I told him about it, and he offered me a spot on his beta team, and he liked my feedback, so he told me, oh, you should do this. And I was just like, what are you talking about? I mean, and it's funny too, because I had a degree in English, but I was working in administration because that's really all I could get a job in, which was kind of sad, right?
It is.
Yeah, but that's all I could really find after I graduated. So that's what I was doing, and I wasn't very happy. So I don't know. And then one day I got laid off, and I was just like, well, whatever. I might as well try it, right? And that was that. That was the start.
The the idea of like doing fan sites and things like that. As you're working doing something else and making a living with another job, but just doing these things because you love them. Where does that come from? And thank God we live in the time that we live in where that's a thing that people can actually do. 100 years ago,
Yeah.
that's not a thing that you can do and get any attention. Where does that love of fandom come from? And you just talk a little bit about the way that we can be involved in other people's work. It's really a great time.
I mean, for me personally, I think because I had to think about this one time when someone else asked it, but I actually I had been doing fan sites since I was a teenager. When I first got online, I think this was in like 1996 or something. Yeah, I'm old.
Yeah.
But I was in high school and I really liked the Romeo and Juliet movie that had come out recently.
Right.
And I
The one with
started
Leo.
yeah, yeah. And I started a GeoCities page dedicated
Nice.
to that movie. But yeah, that was my first fan site. So, and then I don't know, I started just doing them. And once I started learning WordPress and stuff like that, I just started thinking, I love all these books and they're finally being made into movies. So I want to be involved. And it was a way to be involved without any kind of connections or anything like that. So it was really easy to do. You could just have a love for something and just start a website, and that was it. And if you were lucky, you would get contacted by the studio and things like that, which was really fun.
No doubt. No doubt. So you make this connection with Hugh Howey through this fan site, and he asks you to kind of join his beta team, and then he encourages you to, that this may be something that you should do. Um, what was some of the first interactions that you got with other authors that you maybe didn't know through a connection like that? And was it scary, reaching out to people, and offering your services? Because I can tell you as an author, it's those first interactions you have with an editor are terrifying. That, someone, and everyone gets these memories back to like their high school English teacher, and it's just terrifying, and
Yeah.
I can only imagine that it has to be, it's a unique relationship that you form with an editor, and I can only imagine what that probably feels like for the editor as well. Kind of, what's it like starting as an editor?
Well, I mean, it's terrifying too, because especially someone like me who is just jumping right into it, right? Because all you think is, how do I get my first client? For me, I started on Upwork. Um, I was just bidding on a lot of jobs, and I was looking for fiction because I was like, I want to do fiction. I love fiction. Um, and then I got one. It was a sci-fi novel about cloning. And I had actually written this letter to my college newspaper about the dangers of human cloning. So it was actually something that really spoke to me. So I was really into that. But it was a tough edit. I think I edited that book 6 times. That was rough. But after I was done, I was like, oh, okay. So if I can make it through that, maybe I can cut it at this. So, and then I got another client that was for a middle grade series. He had like something like 6 books already written, um, and he wanted to find someone to get last look at his book. And I was like, well, I'm starting out. I'm looking for experience. So I'll give you a nice deal. And it kind of went from there. You just build on a couple things, and once you have something to point at to say that I can do this, then it just builds from there. And now I think I've edited, I think I recently passed 150 books edited recently. So
Wow. Well, when you look through your portfolio and you meet authors who you've worked with, there definitely tends to be a certain flavor to the work that you like to do, and lots of science fiction, some fantasy, some science adventure type things. Are there certain things that a writer should look for to make sure that an editor is the right fit for them?
Well, first of all, the thing that I want to stress is that if you want, I think you need to at first make sure that the editor you're talking to enjoys fiction. I mean, it can be like me where they're just starting out, so maybe they don't have a lot of experience. But if you like want someone like who's really good at it, then I would say find someone who has experience in your specific genre. But yeah, it should definitely. I don't know that it's a good idea to find someone who edits in a completely different field, because one thing that I didn't really think of when I started this is that there are so many different types of editors. There's academic editors, there's pharmaceutical editors, technical editors, and I mean fiction. I think you need to have a creative part of your brain that can manage that. So I think you need to find someone who's more right brain than left brain. So, but someone who also has left brain elements, so you can make sure all your grammar and stuff is correct.
Well, even the grammar can be kind of fluid. If you're doing nonfiction versus fiction, there are stylistic things that are completely different, and there are a lot of colloquialisms in fiction, and dialogue is a completely different thing. And as an editor, is that a tough thing to learn to balance? Protecting an author's voice versus making sure that we follow the rules. Is that something that's tough for a fiction editor to learn where to tweak and what to leave alone, if you will?
I mean, that's why I said that I think you need to find someone who's into fiction and has like a creative bug in them, because someone who doesn't understand that fiction authors bend the rules all the time is probably not going to be a good fit, because I feel like they're more likely to tell you can't do this, you can't do that, even if it would make sense for a fiction author, So author's voice to me is extremely important. I mean, there's a line. It's like a case by case scenario. There's sometimes where I'm just like, yeah, that works, and sometimes where I'm just like, no, don't do that. So it has to be like, it all depends on the context, the scene, the setting, the characters, and everything like that. So it has to be, it has to be evaluated on a micro level.
I know that you work with a lot of authors, repeatedly, and like one of my favorite authors is R.D. Brady, and I love her books, and I know that you have worked with her quite a lot. Does it become easier when you build a relationship with an author? Do you guys kind of share a certain shorthand the more you work together, and or is every project, no matter if they're repeat or not, is it, kind of the same process?
Well, it definitely gets easier because, from the editing side, I know you talked about how authors find editors terrifying to approach, but for editors, I mean, a lot of us don't lately. I know it's our jobs to be critical and point out all the mistakes and things, but it doesn't make us feel good all the time.
Right.
Because I mean, you just feel like you're just being the world's meanest person. You're just tearing the book apart or whatever. But yeah, it gets easier because after the first book and the second book, you're just okay. You kind of get a feel for what they can handle. Because I don't have on my questionnaire, do you want me to be brutal or do you want me to be nice? Because I don't want that to scare people off, right? So, I don't have a level of meanness. Select one.
Tell me what you can handle.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's particularly tough with developmental editing because people who are at that stage are probably going to get their book torn apart anyway. But it just feels like you're a terrible person. I'm always nervous turning in a developmental edit and I don't hear from them for a while. I'm like, oh my God, are they crying? Oh my God, I feel so awful. It's very nerve-wracking.
One thing that I've learned in working with several different editors is that everyone involved in the process wants to make the best book that they can. Mm-hmm. And like you said, sometimes you have to tell the hard truths and you have to point out things that are just blatantly wrong. But that's because you want to see the book be the best that it can be, and you have to believe in the author at some point. Or you wouldn't be, wasting your time with it. So I think that's, as writers, that's something that you have to learn, is that everyone wants the best product available. And, part of this, you've got to suck it up and be a big boy or girl and learn as you go, like everyone does. Because,
from an editor standpoint, we do not want to see you get, scathing criticism in your reviews after you've spend all your time and effort and money into it, to have this big glaring plot hole come out later when it's too late. So that's what I try to tell myself all the time is, they need to hear this now before this is public viewing. So
you talked about, understanding what kind of editor that you need, and there's developmental editors, there's line editors, there are proofreaders, and I know that over the years you have expanded all of the services that you offer. It seems like every month you're adding something new that you do, and I'm like, yeah, go Crystal. But what kind of services do you offer, and can you kind of explain what those differences are? Like, what's the difference in a line editor and a developmental editor?
This is actually going to be a course that I'm going to be writing later this month. That I'm going to hope to offer next year. But basically, developmental editing is for people who need help with their story structure. They've written out, they don't know if it's working and if they need to change major things. And so a developmental edit doesn't actually deal with the sentences. It's actually just more like a big picture kind of thing. So you get typically you would get comments pointing out specific sentences that need work and different habits that the writer needs to break and get good ones that the writer needs to get into, and then usually a really long editorial letter that is like an essay of what you need to change, and then you go from there and you have to rewrite your book based on that. And at the line editing stage is different because that's when you start working on the grammar and the voice and flow and chapter breaks and things like that, and dialogue and all that. So
gotcha. And you offer a whole range from developmental down to proofreading, right?
I actually start things at beta reading.
Okay.
And I'm thinking of expanding into alpha reading because I've noticed that some people maybe aren't quite ready for beta reading. It's more like they have something pretty raw and they need some feedback, but they're not quite ready to commit to a developmental edit. So thinking about expanding into that next year. So, but yeah, I have beta reading, I have developmental editing, I have manuscript critique and line editing, copy editing, and proofreading.
One thing that I love about your website, and I can tell that you're, old school WordPress person, because you're always adding stuff to your website that's really, useful and helpful. And something that I've not seen any other editors do is that you have a queue where people can check the status of their project on the website, which is amazing. I wish more people would do that. That's a fantastic thing that you do. You are also adding, you've got the book lovers box that you do, and you mentioned a minute ago the online courses that you're doing, and you recently launched one, and you're going to be expanding that into the year. What's going on with that, and how can people benefit from the courses that you're doing?
Okay, so yeah, I recently launched my school. It's called Pikkos School for Wordcraft and Editing. It's going to be offering courses in both writing and editing. So the first one that I launched is a mini course. It takes about 20 minutes to go through. And I'm offering that for free for people who join my school or sign up for my newsletter. And it's called Properly Punctuating Dialogue. It's something that I've noticed that a lot of first-time authors struggle with. So that was something I wanted to be able to say, okay, you can go take my course now.
A lot of returning authors struggle with it too. That's the edits I get back are always, would you freaking learn what to do inside of quotation marks? I'm like, okay, sorry. But yeah, it's extremely helpful. I took it last week and it's amazing.
Oh, you did? Okay.
It's fantastic.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I really want that to be something that, anybody can point people to, whether it be one of my fellow editors or authors who want to help their fellow authors out, who ask them for things. But yeah, so if you know anybody who struggles with that, just send them to my new school.
We'll definitely put a link to that in the show notes to send people straight over there. What do you hope to accomplish with the school, and what areas are you looking to branch out into?
Well, my first paid course is going to be about the editorial process, because that's another thing I know that authors struggle with is, as you mentioned, like how do you know which type of service you need, because some people just aren't sure. I mean, when I first started out, I didn't even know the difference between developmental and line editing too, because I wasn't in the publishing industry. I came into the self-publishing industry, and even a lot of indie authors, they didn't, and they still don't know what the difference is. So, because I don't know, I mean, when you're growing up and you read books, you just hear the word editor and you think they do everything, right?
Right.
You just have this big bad picture of an editor. But there are very specific types of editors out there. Some people can do both of them or all of them. Others specialize in certain things, so.
We always have this idea of the editor is sitting there and she's got red ink stains all over her hands and she's just angry all the time. But that's not you at all. You don't. Tell me about the Book Lovers box. What's that about?
It's a digital subscription box. It's free for subscribers. So I'm actually late putting out my December one because I had a deadline, so I had to put that on, plus Thanksgiving. But basically, I got the idea from trying out actual subscription boxes, the kind that you get in the mail, like snacks and books and things like that. And I had like a couple of loot crates that were Harry Potter ones. And, after I opened them, after like the first 5 minutes of, ooh, look at this and ooh, look at that, we're just like, now what do we do with this stuff? And I was just like, oh my God, if I keep subscribing, I'm just going to have this accumulation of things that I don't know what to do with. And I was like, but I like subscription boxes. They're fun. So I thought that's where I got the idea to do a digital one, where you could still open a box and you wouldn't have to worry about all the clutter afterwards. So that's why I started the digital one. So it includes I recruit authors to try to put in free books and books on sale and advertisements for like street teams and things like that. And I put puzzles, things like try to keep it fun, make it an interactive kind of thing. So it's kind of like a newsletter, but it's on my website. And so what I do is when the box comes out, I send out an email with a picture of a box. And you click on it and you enter the password on my website, and it takes you to that's how you open the box and you get your box of ebooks and goodies. So
nice. I just thought of something talking about the courses, the online school that you're doing. And I noticed when I did the free course, you really are working to build some community around that, aren't you?
Yeah. That's why I'm hosting it on this site called Mighty Networks.
Right.
I really like their platform. It lets you have it's almost like a mini version of Facebook.
Yeah.
Like groups and things, and it's got the course platform too. So I was like, yeah, bonus.
You're right. Well, I know, over the last year or two, the other, why am I drawing a blank on the courses that, you and I talked about it a couple weeks ago, the one that David Baldacci was doing, the masterclass.
Masterclass.
Yeah, and I have, I've done Baldacci's and Neil Gaiman's and a couple of others, and I really love those, but I wish there was more of a community aspect to it, because sometimes at the end of some of those, I wish, I would really like to ask a question,
or talk to somebody, right? Somebody else taking it.
Exactly. And I think that's what's really been missing from some of those, because there's some really great information there, but sometimes they just kind of, they pique my interest more than they answer questions. And I love that you are taking the thing that I think is missing from that and really going to expound on that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still building it. I just opened it, so it's a work in progress, but yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do eventually. I wanted to have a platform off of Facebook, and something that's like, on my domain, so that it's got like my branding on it and things. So
fantastic. You also have done a webcomic simple markup. Are you doing more of those? I love those so much.
I do that every week. I wish it's pretty tough coming up with something every week. But yeah, that's one of the things I'm hoping. So I have a self-imposed staycation that I have blocked off at the end of the month. I don't know if I'm going to actually take it, but making a book is actually on my list of things to do. I just don't have time for it while I'm working during the year, but I hope to do that when I'm on vacation.
I can't wait to see what comes out of that. Crystal, if people are, looking for some of the services that you offer, what's the best way for them to contact you and to start the process of connecting with you and, getting plugged into all that you do?
I would say just look at my website. I purposely make it very informative. I make it comprehensive, although I haven't had time to update my portfolio lately, and that's another thing on my list to do during vacation. But basically, you just look at my website, look at my portfolio, and see if I have the experience in the genre that you work in, and see if you think I'm the right person for you, and then you would contact me. Let me know like the timeline, word count, and then I would do a sample edit. Sample edits are really important for finding out if we're a good fit for each other. Because something I learned over the years is that I'm not the right editor for every author. I wish I could be, but I'm not. So we just have to see whether we're on the right page when it comes to the editing process. So if you like the sample and you like the price, then we go from there.
And that website is?
pikkoshouse.com.
Great. And of course, there'll be links to it everywhere. Crystal, it's been so much fun catching up. We're going to send everyone to see you. Thank you so much for taking time to come on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
No use crying over spilled milk. Eliza hated that cliche. She'd grown up a cliche, her life a bowl of cherries, duck soup, easy as pie, child's play behind a white picket fence. Mother had been the Wyatt Earp of cliches, firing them off quick draw. A rotten apple spoils the barrel. Smile and the world smiles with you. Every dog has his day. Children should be seen and not heard. She believed them all, particularly this last. Eliza obliged, preferring to wander the streets of Wytheville, Virginia, on her own lonesome terms. The divorce left Laura a spinster librarian, and one false step on icy stairs left her an invalid as well. The accident happened on New Year's Eve, 1950. Laura had just locked the doors of Wytheville Public Library. We must make black-eyed peas tomorrow, Laura had been thinking, with turnip greens. That ensured a lucky new year, and if you swept some money over your threshold, a prosperous one, too. She loved those old Southern traditions. She looked both ways, checking for Negroes, but turned a heel on the icy marble of the stairs and fell into the bushes below, breaking the long bones in both legs. Eliza had taken advantage of her mother's absence. She'd lost her virginity that same night. She'd swept Ron Partridge over her threshold, initiating her own beloved tradition. She was nursing a hangover, giddily reliving the event. But around 8:30 she realized that her mother had not come down to breakfast. She checked her mother's bedroom, found it empty, took the bus down to the library, climbed the high stairs, knocked hard on the library doors, and heard a groan below. Laura lay under the William Penn barberry bushes, below the yellow-trimmed windows of the non-fiction section. Her white stockings ran Jezebel red with blood. Sweat and melted snow had soaked her blouse, and her gray forehead blazed. The broken bones didn't kill Laura Merrick. She lay in the hospital, wheezing, her legs mortared up in casts. She had few visitors after the first week. Her church group was glad to fret over a poor thing for a day or two, but they trickled away when Laura had the bad manners to linger. On Valentine's Day, as her mother slept, Eliza drew big, sloppy hearts on her casts. Laura harumphed when she woke and insisted on keeping her legs hidden beneath blankets afterwards. But in late March, something miraculous happened. Laura's self-control dropped. She ranted at nurses, spit at doctors, swore like a Navy pilot dropping F-bombs on Hiroshima. She had dementia, the doctors said. Eliza decided that her mother had just stopped believing her own bullshit. The spells continued over the next 2 weeks, and Eliza enjoyed her mother's company for the first time. They swapped bawdy jokes, ogled the handsome interns, and chattered like best girlfriends late into the evening. They had long conversations, and Laura spoke her own mind in her own words about things that mattered to her. It broke Eliza's heart when the prim, condescending librarian returned. Laura hardly acknowledged anything that had passed between them. The clichés returned. You can't have your cake and eat it too. A leopard doesn't change its spots. Nothing is certain except death and taxes. This last proved true. On April 15th, Laura Merrick marked her Bible with a tongue depressor, set it on her nightstand, leaned back against the headboard, and coughed blood down the front of her nightdress. Eliza found her that way, dead as the proverbial doornail, and yes, the blood was thicker than water, just as her mother had always said. Much thicker than water, in fact, perhaps as thick as molasses in January.